I think I started off last week by saying what a freaking letdown that was, and I can't even say that for this week because I expected to lose by multiple scores. I think my score was 24-13. But even after a game that I expected to lose by multiple scores, I still find myself let down. Like, what was that performance? Like, I understand your best cornerback's out, your slot cornerback's out, your freaking quarterback's out. I understand. But just so many things in that game just shows you what's wrong with the Giants in 2020. I mean, like, I try to be optimistic about them. I think they're moving in the right direction finally after, 2 or 3 years. But this game just showed you the lack of depth. It showed you that they don't have a real backup quarterback. Like, the Giants scored 6 points against the Browns. And we'll get into this later, but even if the Giants kicked those field goals when they went for it, which was, the Riley Dixon passing play, which we'll go over later, which was crazy, and then the Wayne Gallman play where he got stopped short on a 4th and 2, I think it was. Even if the Giants kicked the field goals there, they put up 12 points in this game. You're not winning many games in the NFL with 12 points. So stop harping on, oh, Joe Judge should have kicked the field goals there, because you're not winning the game with 12 points. Cleveland put up 20. They probably should have put up more, honestly, but they put up 20. You're not going to win games in the NFL by kicking field goals all the time. Now, I think on the first one, when Riley Dixon had the passing play, they should have kicked it there. Go up 3-0, get yourself the lead in a game where you're underdogs. I get that. The second one, I agreed with going for it. I forget what the exact situation does. I probably have it in my phone. But the second one where Gallman came up a bit short, I was fine with that one. But the first one, probably take the 3 points there. But anyway, you're not going to win games in the NFL scoring 12 points is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, we'll get into the game. We'll get into some of the the big stuff that happened, the big things that people are talking about. We'll get to the offense, defense, all that. And hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and let's get into it. Before we get into the game, I want to bring this up because I'm sure some people, I don't know what percentage of people, but I'm sure some people are like, oh, Gettleman's done a great job. Well, here's a tweet from someone that goes by @_Derek N. He says, Giants and Browns drafted first and second in 2018. Look where these two franchises are right now. Fire Gettleman tonight. Now, keep Gettleman out of it, right? Forget about that. Just look at it from the situational standpoint of two teams that should have started their rebuilds in 2018. The Browns did. The Browns took their franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield. They took the running back in the second round, Nick Chubb, who looks, excellent. Then the Browns, even this past offseason, had front office turnover. They, I think, hired Andrew Berry, I think his name is. They have a new head coach in Kevin Stefanski, and these guys are about to go 11-5 this year at minimum because they play the Jets next week. I think they play the Steelers the week after. They're going at least 11-5. Like, and we're sitting here at, we were celebrating at 5-7, acting like, oh, the Giants are great. The Browns are going to go 11-5 at minimum this year. Like, that's a real team. We're out here celebrating about 11-5, or 5-7, I'm sorry. Now we're 5-9. Anyway, it just goes to show you that one team that was in a very similar situation, the Browns, who we know the Browns the past 20 years have been awful, were in the same spot as us back in 2018. They did things right. We did things wrong. And before people bring up, well, James Bradbury and Darnell Holmes and Daniel Jones were out. Okay, I get it. But here's the thing. The Browns had their stud right guard, possibly the best right guard in football, and Wyatt Teller, out for this game. A second-round pick in Grant Delpit, who was their starting safety, or supposed to be, is out for the year. He has been out the whole year. Odell Beckham was supposed to be their stud wide receiver, of course, is out for the year. And there was one other guy I wanted to bring up as well. I think it was Greedy Williams. Greedy Williams, a cornerback from LSU, is supposed to be the starter opposite of Denzel Ward, is also out. I don't know if it's for the year, but he was out this game, of course. So he's been out for a while, I think. So, yes, there's excuses to be made for the Giants, but a team like the Browns, who builds depth in the right way, they found a way to win. I know their quarterback's healthy, I get it, but still, it just goes to show you that one team is probably built a lot better than we are. But anyway, let's get into the game. All right, so for the fourth down calls, I kind of went over it before. The Riley Dixon thing, it had a chance of working because if you look at the replay, Graham Gano was open. I will admit that. We'll go back and look at it in the film review coming out probably Tuesday or so. Graham Gano was open, so that play could have worked. We tried to go for a triple coverage Nick Gates one-handed catch, which I would say probably had a 0.2% chance of working, and we got the outcome that we deserved. So they tried it. If it worked, it would have been awesome. But, at that point, just keep the offense out on the field. Like, you're just getting too cute at that point. I personally would have taken the 3 points to go up 3-0, but it is what it is. Then the second one, I'll try and look at it in my phone and see what the exact situation was, because that definitely makes it a lot better. So it was a 4th and 2 near the end of the second quarter, about 5 minutes left. They were on Cleveland's 5-yard line. They ran a shotgun handoff, inside handoff up the middle to Wayne Gallman. So they, came up a yard short, maybe, 6 inches short, whatever it was. So I didn't mind that one because I didn't write down what the score was. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the score was at that point, but it probably was like a touchdown game or so. Like, I guess getting a field goal there, okay, you make it like a 4-point game, whatever. But when it's 4th and 2, you have your best cornerback out, your quarterback is out as well. You kind of got to get touchdowns here. Like, we're not winning this game with field goals, as I mentioned before. So I did not mind going for 2. The philosophy was right. They just didn't get the play call right, and the Browns, sniffed it out, and they got it right. They stopped us. So it is what it is. But I agreed with going for it on 4th down the second time around. So the first half, this was the big highlight. I tweeted about this. In the first half, the Giants had 3 points on 3 red zone trips, which obviously is not a good ratio. Now, the first one, they had the Riley Dixon play. Another one was the Wayne Gallman play on 4th down. So it is what it is. I get it. And the other one was a field goal, I guess, by Graham Gano. So yes, 3 points in 3 red zone trips. Not going to get it done most times, and that definitely was a downfall. Dion Lewis fumbled another kickoff. Now, thankfully, the Giants got it back. I think it was in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. That's 2 weeks in a row now. He lost one last week, and against the Cardinals, definitely a big turning point in that game. Now, this one, if he lost this one as well, would have been another big turning point in this game. Do you replace Dion Lewis with somebody else? There's a guy that we make inactive every week. What's his name? I would forget his name. Dante Pettis. I know he had a fumble this year on a kickoff return, but he has a lot more juice than a guy like Dion Lewis. I think he's probably like 23, 24. Dion Lewis is probably 30 years old at this point. I know Lewis had a good kickoff return to start the game. Great, but, fumbling 2 weeks in a row, at what point do you start to maybe question, is this the right guy to return kicks? And even, I don't think Jabril Peppers on kickoff returns is the right, solution, because it just sets him up for possible injuries, but even then, that's another guy. The Giants, I think, were outmanned, not outcoached. I think Joe Judge made the right calls for most of this game. I think the Riley Dixon throwing the ball thing, it looks stupid looking back on it because it just was very dumb. Throwing a triple coverage one-handed throw to Nick Gates or a one-handed catch, potentially for Nick Gates. They should have kept the offense on the field if they were going to go for it, but in my opinion, you kick the field goal there. But outside of that, I really can't critique Joe Judge in this game. I really can't. He kept Daniel Jones out of the game, didn't think he was healthy enough. So, okay, that should satisfy you people that think he shouldn't have played last week, okay? So I really can't get on Joe Judge. I think the Giants were just outmanned. The talent discrepancy was too large in this game. The Browns had the more talented roster out there, let's be honest. So for the Giants offense, the Giants need a solid backup quarterback. They were able to win in Seattle at some points. Even the first drive specifically for the Giants is when Colt McCoy looked pretty good. He was like hitting guys, but then there were points on out routes especially where he was throwing balls in the ground, throwing them out of bounds. I was like, what the heck are we doing here? The Giants, especially with a quarterback like Daniel Jones, who has now missed basically 4 games the past 2 years, possibly more if he misses the last 2 games or even next week. The Giants need a solid backup quarterback. Colt McCoy's fine when you have an Eli Manning who plays every game, like a Phillip Rivers type or someone like that. But when you have a quarterback that has an injury history, last year the ankle, college was the collarbone, this year the ankle as well, whatever his injury was, hamstring this year. So Daniel Jones has not had a clean slate of health history so far. I would love to have Jacoby Brissett next year, not even for having a good backup, but to give Daniel Jones some competition. Because next year, I know we're talking about next year, not the game now, but next year, I don't want to run into the situation where the Giants potentially have an elite defense, a really good run game if Saquon Barkley's back and healthy, hopefully, and a really good offensive line that hopefully gets better. These young guys like Lemieux and Hernandez if he's back, and Andrew Thomas, Matt Parrott. I don't want to have like this awesome roster for 21 out of the 22 starters and have the one downside be the quarterback. Like, let's say Daniel Jones struggles in year 3. We don't need to have no backup quarterback, because if Daniel Jones struggles in year 3 halfway through the year, we can make a change to a Jacoby Brissett just in case, just for insurance. I'm not saying saying Daniel Jones will fail in year 3. I hope he's great. But in the event that he fails and the Giants have a great roster, you don't want the quarterback to be the one downfall. So sign yourself a good backup quarterback like a Jacoby Brissett. I mean, it doesn't have to be Brissett. That's the guy I want, but there's other names out there as well. Andrew Thomas versus Myles Garrett looked very good for 90% of this game. Then there was one play at the end where he gave up a sack. He tried to punch, whiffed basically, and he got around them for a sack. But outside of that, I know Myles Garrett was hit hard by COVID. He doesn't look himself and all that. But to basically shut down Myles Garrett in the pass blocking game for 90% of the game, I think is a dub for a guy like Andrew Thomas. So I will take that. The Giants were 0 for 2 on fourth downs. Could have had 6 more points. I mentioned that, of course. Offensive line allowed 1 sack. That was at the very end, as I mentioned, the Andrew Thomas one. Run game never got going. I'll look at the stats real quick for the run game, but I don't really think any Giant individually had a great game on the ground. I think maybe Alfred Morris, yards per carry wise, did pretty well, but his volume was not great. He had 7 carries for 39 yards, 5.6 a carry. Wayne Gallman had 9 carries for 29 yards, which is 3.2 per carry, so not as good. Dion Lewis had 1 for 4. So the Giants didn't really get the run game going. We should know that, of course, and I was hoping that'd be the case against, a run defense that's not spectacular. So once again, the Giants couldn't do it. And no receiver for the Giants was great. We saw once again another Darius Slayton drop, a Darius Slayton play where he slipped in the end zone, which you can blame the MetLife, field for that one or the turf for that one because the MetLife turf is awful. But it hasn't been a great, season for him, I think, based on what we saw last year. But Slayton overall did have 4 for 74. Evan Engram, who I expected to have a big game in this one, I was hoping for like 100 yards or so, like that Bengals game a few weeks ago, only had 4 for 46 and did a lot of that in the fourth quarter, I think. So Sterling Shepard had 4 for 51, Golden Tate 2 for 13, Toilolo 1 for 14, Dion Lewis 2 for 14. So no one really stood out in the receiving game. Graham Gano was 2 for 2 on field goals. He just got that last one in there, but he did get it. So hopefully Gano is in the Pro Bowl. That's another, thing that I want to mention. But for the Giants defense, only 1 sack in this game. Dexter Lawrence chased down Baker Mayfield running to his left. Baker tried to throw it. I think they called it a sack before that throw was even made or attempted, so they got the sack there. Lots of zone coverage on defense when you're out. James Bradbury, a top 5 corner this year. Darnay Holmes, your slot guy. You're relying on Julian Love to play outside corner, which I was happy to see. I've always, wanted him to play outside corner. I've been saying it on this channel for over a year now. He didn't look great. He wasn't terrible, but didn't look great. I mean, he did have some nice plays in coverage, but guys made really great contested catches against him, so I can't really blame him for that. But against this zone coverage the Giants were playing, Baker Mayfield was unbelievable. He had an 84% completion percentage tonight. There was no pass rush, and Baker Mayfield, he put some zip on the ball. Like, if you watch Baker Mayfield, he puts a lot of velocity on the ball. He will find the open guy. I think he missed one guy, Jarvis Landry. They were kind of not on the same page, but outside of that, Baker Mayfield was pretty much perfect against the Giants zone defense. Dexter Lawrence, Blake Martinez, Logan Ryan, I thought all played well tonight. Leonard Williams showed up in the first half, made a couple of really nice plays, but didn't really hear about him in the second half. Jabril Peppers had a quiet game. Jabril Peppers, honestly, since maybe that Tampa game, it's been a long time. Like, Jabril Peppers has put together a long string of games where he's played out of his mind. So this one was kind of down to earth. Jabril Peppers, though, I think is still a part of this team for the future. Hopefully he did. The Giants picked up his 5th-year option. He'll be here. Just stay healthy, please. And Devontae Downs on the Austin Hooper touchdown, the first touchdown by the Browns. It was bad. The broadcast showed it. He came up too far, kind of bit on the play fake, and I think let Hooper get behind him for an easy touchdown. So Devontae Downs ain't it. And this just makes me laugh because I posted on Twitter Saturday, that I just basically pointed out B.J. Goodson, the former Giants linebacker they traded for a 7th-round pick, was having a good year for Cleveland. And of course, some people were fine with it, but of course some people get triggered about this stuff for whatever reason. And they're like, David Mayo's fine. They're just basically the same player. And I'm like, the Giants don't have much linebacker depth outside of Blake Martinez. What do they have behind him? I like Tay Crowder, but who's Tay Crowder? He hasn't really proven much in this league. You know what I mean? He can be gone next year for all we know. And we know David Mayo's nothing special. Devontae Downs, nothing special either. So, why is me throwing out that B.J. Goodson's having a nice year for Cleveland, such a bad thing to say? I don't know why people get, annoyed about this stuff, but it'll never make sense to me. Anyway, so that'll pretty much do it. The Giants are now 5-9. another losing season. We've had, 4 straight losing seasons now, 17, 18, 19, 20. So, yeah, another ugly year. The Giants fall to third place. They're only a half game up on the Eagles, who honestly probably should have won in Arizona today. So, at least we're not in last place. But the Giants are at Baltimore next week. And Baltimore, if you've been keeping up with them, are absolutely beating the crap out of people. They scored 40-something on the Browns 2 weeks ago. A much closer matchup because the Browns matched them offensively for most of the game. I think it was 47-42. Then the Ravens beat the Jaguars today. Jags got a late touchdown. It was probably like 45-10. Like, they just destroyed Jacksonville in Jacksonville, I think it is. So, yeah, it was a rough game for them. But for Jacksonville. But yes, Baltimore's tough to stop. If Colt McCoy's playing, I give us virtually no chance of winning that game. If Bradbury comes back, that's great, but Lamar Jackson's not really going to beat you by throwing for 400 yards. Like, if they're going to beat you on the ground, the Giants can stop the run. But I have a lot of concerns about that game, honestly. And Baltimore's defense, they're really good. They've been really great lately. My man Yannick Ngakoue got a couple sacks today. So, yes, that's actually a revenge game, Jaguars. Just remember that. Revenge game for Yannick Ngakoue against the Jaguars. But anyway, going to be a tough game next week for sure. I don't expect to win it. I hope I'm wrong as usual. I always hope I'm wrong. But, yeah, I mean, look, this week was kind of easy for me to see. Like, the Browns are a lot more talented than us. We had our top defender out in Bradbury. I mean, you can argue Leonard Williams, Blake Martinez. I think that Bradbury's the most important player on our defense. We didn't have a quarterback. You can think what you want about Daniel Jones. You guys know I'm not 100% sold on the guy, but he's better than Colt McCoy. It's not even a question. So once you downgrade a quarterback as well, you're like, oh crap, this is going to be a problem. So there's that as well. What else can I say? I mean, people 2 weeks ago were just telling me to apologize to Dave Gettleman. This is why I didn't prematurely apologize, because now 2 weeks later, we're back to where things basically are. I mean, his second overall pick from 18 has not played. His sixth overall pick from 19 has now been out, 2 out of the past 3 games with an injury. I would love to sit here and say, Dave Gettleman, you've proved me wrong. I'm an idiot. But, at the same, how can I do that? I think the Giants are moving in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. But the guys had 3 off seasons to make us a competitive team. And by year 3, it does not take 5 years to compete in the NFL. People should know this. I was told this yesterday or 2 days ago by somebody. It takes 1 to 2 off seasons to make your team competitive. This guy's had 3, and the Giants find themselves at 5-9, and they'll probably finish at 6-10 at best. And now Dallas is playing well, so even that last game is not a gimme. So they might be 5-11. Who knows? So for me to sit here and praise Gettleman over a Seattle win where the defense carried, let's be honest, it wasn't like I don't know. I mean, it was a good win. I get it, but it's not like our talent is the reason we won that game. I'm sure a lot of it was coaching, defensive scheme with why can't I remember his name now? Patrick Graham. So yes, I will give Gettleman credit for certain moves, and once, hopefully the Giants move off from this offseason, I'll make a whole video addressing it. He's had good moves here, but the misses have outweighed the positives so much that it's just bringing the Giants in the wrong direction. Like, the Giants taking Saquon, second overall, has screwed them, and people always say, just forget it, it happened 3 years ago. I can't forget it because it's having implications on the Giants in 2020. It'll have implications in 2021. Hopefully Barkley comes back next year and rushes for 1,500 yards and receives for 1,000 and shuts me up. But even then, you still don't take a running back that high when you should be a rebuilding team. So, there's that. There's the questions about the Daniel Jones pick. Has Dave Gettleman drafted an elite player for the Giants in his 3 drafts? I mean, yes, you can't really judge his class from this past year. Andrew Thomas, rough start. McKinney, injury. Matt Parrott looked pretty good. Who else we got? I love Darnay Holmes, of course. I like the Lemieux pick. We'll see how those pan out. But Dave Gettleman, outside of taking a running back that's been injured a lot the past 2 years, has not drafted a quote-unquote stud for the Giants. I have to admit it. Free agency in 18-19, terrible. No one good, right? I mean, the Giants let go of some really good players. Romeo Okwara, the guy that he released for nothing, who was probably making 6 figures at the time, now has 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 safety. Why did we release Romeo Okwara to sign a guy like Connor Barwin? So now I'm getting too deep into the rabbit hole about Dave Gettleman, but you know what I mean? That kind of stuff annoys me. How he just needed to push these guys out to replace them with players that are worse. And people say Jerry Reese left this guy with nothing. That's not really true. The Giants had a talented roster when he took over. A lot of bad contracts, I get it, so you have to get rid of those. But even then, he traded Jason Pierre-Paul, who was making, I forget how much he was making per year, year, maybe 14, 15 million per year, and replaced him with Alec Ogletree, who was making $12 million per year. So you take off JPP, bring in Ogletree, you're saving about $3 or $4 million. That's not really saving a ton of money. They could have kept JPP and not traded for Ogletree, and they would have been fine on the cap. Now JPP, as we know, is having a really nice career with the Buccaneers. So just so many stupid moves he made in the past, I guess, to either clear out the bad apples in the locker room, whatever it was, have proven to backfire on this team. And I can go on for hours and hours about this, but he's just put them in a bad spot. Like, the Giants should be in a much better spot in 2020 than they are right now. We should not be a team that's about to go 6-10, 5-11 in year 3 of this guy. Let's be honest. You can love Gettleman all you want, but this should be better than it really is. The Browns are an example of it. The Cardinals are an example of it. There's teams all over the league that were in similar situations back then that are now a lot better. I mean, you could maybe say the Buffalo Bills. I know they traded up for Josh Allen, but that's different. So I'm sure there's other teams that I can't really think of right now, but they're in better positions than us. So it's a shame. It is what it is. But hopefully, for my sake, the Giants get themselves a great general manager this offseason. Now, I will stick to my word. I want this to come down to Joe Judge's decision. I want Joe Judge to pick his guy that he wants to work with. And if he wants to work with Dave Gettleman, I won't be happy about it, but at least I'll feel good about it because Joe Judge wanted him, and I trust Joe Judge. But I think if it's really up to Joe Judge, he'll pick a guy he wants to work with, whether it's a guy he's worked with in the past, like a Nick Caserio, what's his name, Monty Ossenfort, whatever his name is, with the Titans now, who he worked with in New England. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I would prefer the Giants to move on from Gettleman because he has definitely left his fingerprints on this team in a bad way. And when you look at the misses over the years and all the bad things he's done, definitely outweighs the good. So I will leave it at that. Anyway, Giants lose a tough game. Not a tough game, but it was a tough game to watch. I'll put it that way. Not really a competitive game in this one. It was Colt McCoy, I get it, but just a rough game for the Giants. They now are 5-9, play Baltimore next week. At least for our sake, Washington lost a close one. They honestly could have won that game at the end. The Eagles lost. The Cowboys are now ahead of us again, as I mentioned, so that's something to watch out for. But yeah, at least 2 other teams lost in our division, so there's that. The Giants need to win next week. If they don't, they might be mathematically out. I think Washington plays the Panthers next week, who have been pretty awful the last month and a half or so. So if Washington wins and we lose to Baltimore, our season could be over in week 16, which would suck because I want to go into week 17 with something to watch. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But we'll find out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I rambled for 20 minutes in this segment plus the intro. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. But I will talk to you guys next time.